Please rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Actually, I need to appoint a secretary for this evening.
Or no, you want to tell somebody to do it?
No, I'm not going to tell anybody to do it. No, I get in trouble when I do that at home. Will you please take attendance?
You betcha. President Alessandro?
Here.
Secretary Stefik? Vice President Dr. Brazington?
Here.
Treasurer Guthrie?
Here.
Trustee Donnelly?
Here.
Trustee Schaefer? Here. Trustee Bailey?
Here.
Thank you. Okay, any changes to the board agenda?
None.
None? And I have item 3, consent agenda, which is item A, minutes of December 12th, and item B, bills payable from November of 2017. Have a motion, please. Ms. Guthrie?
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support. Support Dr. Brazington. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, prearranged request to address the board. Item A, Lakeville.
Hello, how are you? Welcome to Lakeville. Sorry about the flag. Apologize for that. We have a couple of students here to meet you today, and they are students who have taken action through our ID program, or just because of the fact that they're great people and they really want to take action. And so I think it's the influence of the International Baccalaureate program on students that's causing students to take action on their own and initiate this in their own lives. So the ones that we're going to talk to you about today are kids that have taken some action without initiation from a school project. So I would like to bring up Avery Boyer. And then, because I didn't do this for them when they were here, Caleb and Aiden can stand up back there. What the Boyer kids do for our Giving Tree is they give up their Christmas and donate it to our Giving Tree. All 3 of them have done it just out of the goodness of their heart. They've done this on their own accord. And so that is the action which they've taken. So I'm gonna keep Avery up here, and Aiden and Caleb, if you guys wanna come up, you can come up too, but I don't have to horrify middle school students if you don't really wanna be horrified. And then I have Aiden McCarran and Kaylee Holmes. And these 2 amazing people decided to sell hot cocoa outside of Valor, the salon downtown, to raise money for a children's charity for, tell me Aiden what it was for? Was it homeless? There we go, for homeless children. So they did that on their own on a Saturday. They made hot cocoa, and I think you guys have another one scheduled, don't you? What day is that?
We just did it.
Oh, you just did it. So that's what they're doing on their own time, not initiated by a school project. So I have these guys step over. I have Ben, come on. So my Mr. Schneider here this is Ben Schneider, and I'm trying to get the name right. St. Baldrick's charity. He shaved his head to raise money and to bring awareness to the St. Baldrick's Foundation. And I have to look at my notes for this one because it's a cancer foundation. And did you do anything else? Did you just shave your head and raise money? Is that it? That's all you did? Shave your head and raise money? So no, that's an amazing thing for a 6-year-old.
Oh my gosh.
To do on his own accord, so.
I did it when I was 5.
He did it when he was 5. He did it when he was 5.
Oh my gosh.
So, and then I did not see Luna. Is Luna here? I'll still talk about Luna. What Luna did, this is such a cool thing that she did. She brought in those little lunch bags for everybody in her classroom, and they went out on the playground and they collected garbage. And they just cleaned up the area, and then they put all the garbage into those little bags. Of course, they decorated their bags before they went out there, and then as a school, because you were in that class. Want to tell the story of that? What else did you guys do after you?
We just put it
You just put it inside, but do you remember where they landed? Do you remember where they ended up? Oh, they put it in by the door, and then we collected them and put them in the showcase because we thought it was such a nice show of action for our students to do. So we actually kept the garbage in the school for a week or so.
That's how you're rotten.
It wasn't that bad, it was all papers. So I just wanted to recognize these amazing students for doing some really cool things that really you just don't have to do, but they do because they have great hearts and great families and people supporting them and encouraging it. So Bennett raised $100. How much money did you guys raise?
250.
Nice. Very nice. And then these guys, like I said, gave up their Christmas.
Wow.
You're here.
Okay. Thank you guys very much. I appreciate it. And I promised them that because it's bedtime, they could go. If you guys don't mind.
Sure. And if it's okay with moms and dads, I don't know if you've already had a cookie, maybe you might want to split those cookies because a little bit of sugar in them before bed, but feel free to take one of those and or a carrot or whatever.
That's perfect.
And that's it.
Well, you want
Thank you.
Thank you, Thursday.
Oh, I'm sorry. There, the students of autism in our building made for you an ornament for your tree. So those are all for you from our ASC suite.
Thank you, thank you.
Yep. That's my son.
Okay,
Get water.
item B, we're going to reopen the FOIA appeal.
Here's one
I don't know if the group that requested the FOIA appeal is in attendance. No? Okay, well, as I stated in my letter back to them, that, I just want to read this real quick. The FOIA appeal has been placed on the December 19th, 2017 agenda in order for them to provide documentation or present reason for their appeal. The board will be making a determination on this matter on 12/19/2017. We opened this last week. You know what, should we say that for discussion? The explanation of why we're reopening? Yep. There is a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to deny the FOI appeal and uphold your decision as president of the school board.
Second. Mr. Bailey, discussion? Just for clarification, just to point out that there was correspondence that went back and forth. I thought it was very important that the appeal be heard by the board, let the board make a decision. I don't have any additional facts to say yes or no, so the motion's been made. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 5, Board of Education matters.
So I'm going to stand if you all don't mind. The district, myself, numerous people have been receiving many questions in regards to both the sinking fund and the bond. And all of those questions really revolve around, okay, when do we start getting stuff? And so I felt like it was important that we put out there the information that we have today, and we'll update this as we go along. We'll post this on our website. And And so, really just a couple of things. One, in regards to the sinking fund dollars, legally, you cannot spend anything in regards to your sinking fund until after you've collected it. So just as a reminder, we will not actually be taking receipt of any funds until, I'll say, October, November of 2018. That'll be the first time we receive funds. So we will not be spending anything prior to that point in regards to the sinking fund. I think the other more important thing to say too in regards to the sinking fund is there was really two main categories of expenses that we were going to use the sinking fund for. And that was a rollover of the site improvements. And so that would be like driveways, sidewalks, things like that we couldn't afford in the bond. And the second portion was technology related, really for instructional devices. So there's really nothing more to report on the sinking fund until, maybe this time next year when we say, okay, what are we gonna spend our first round of funds on? And it'll be within those two categories. So this update really speaks to the bond portion. And as you remember, in order to obtain the approximate $30 million, we decided to sell the bonds in a series of 3 different series. And so that's really what I'm going to go over tonight. It'll show the timing and what all components are included in each series. And so this is important because, I'll give you an example because like Ann's out there. And so originally when we put all of our plans together, while the most important thing is identifying those things that we're going to spend our bond proceeds on, because you have to submit that to the state. If you don't include those things, then you can't spend your money, your bond money on those. So, so we just sort of allocated those to get them to fit into the buckets. And so originally, we only had about, I'm going to say, $90,000 towards buses in the first series. And in discussions with Ann, we can't wait another 2 years. Our fleet is just at the point where we can't do that. And so that means when we move something up, we have to move something else back because we're not getting the full $30 million all at one time. We're getting them in 3 chunks. So that's what I'm going to go over tonight. Again, we'll post it and we'll keep people updated as we go along. So in the first series, so beginning in 2018, and the very first part of the year, we'll be working with Chuck and IDS and Clark Construction, our construction management team. We'll be doing the design documentation for our infrastructure improvements for adding building-wide air conditioning at all elementary schools. At DA, we're also going to be doing the boiler replacement and the corridor carpet. At the high school, it'll be the roof, and I think that's an air conditioning unit for the 3, 4, and 500 wings, as well as money to buy some buses, and we're looking at somewhere around a minimum of 10 buses in this first round. So, the important thing to note here is, so we come back from Christmas break, we start to get into the design of how we're going to actually do the air conditioning in the buildings, all that kind of stuff. We'll complete that design, we'll put it out for bid, we'll review them in the fall of 2018. We actually put them out to bid in November, December of 2018. And the heavy construction actually won't start until the summer of 2019. Okay? So I think the other thing to point out here is that right now too, our plan is in the late spring, early summer is when we'll actually go to sell the bond proceeds. and we won't actually be taking receipt of the first money until, I'm gonna say late May, more likely sometime in June. All right, so that's the timing of the selling of the first series, when we receive it, and then when we'll actually go out for construction. Chuck is also here from IDS, so I've told Chuck if I say something wrong or he needs to correct me, he's gonna jump in and do that. But, so that's really series one. Any questions? All right. Oh, Joyce?
So the buses couldn't be purchased until we have the bond proceeds, which will be sometime in May of next year? No, May a year from now.
So great question. So this is what we're gonna do with the buses. There's actually quite a lengthy lead time on the bus. So Ann and her team is already going out and, I'm gonna say, building the bus that we want online, getting that ready. And we'll actually probably place the order for those buses, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe like March, April, something like that, or before?
They either have to be purchased or through the MSBO competitive bid. They have to be purchased or the order placed by January 31st.
That's right.
Or the MSBO website closes down for a couple of months and then it opens back up in the spring. So I want to say sometime April or May, when it comes back up where you can do that competitive bid again, which is the easiest way to do it, because then you've got your 3 bids, it's all done. You can build the bus right on the MSBO website. And
So we'll actually place our order at the end of January.
hopefully at the end of January.
Yup, so that we're in the first round. We probably won't take delivery of the first ones until that time when we get that first round of bond money, end of May, June.
Yeah.
So we will be spending, as soon as we get the first proceeds of the bond sales, we will be spending, I don't know, I'm gonna say approximately $1 million in the end of May, beginning of June, when those buses come in.
2018.
2018.
2018.
So those buses, we'll have those buses ready to go and in operation for the start of next school year.
Great.
Thank you.
These are new buses.
New buses. I know, we don't see that much around here.
I know, that's why I was
These
just
are new
double
buses.
checking. These are brand new buses, right?
Yes.
0 miles.
Yep. Maybe a few miles, but,
Okay.
all right, we'll keep going.
Thank you.
Yes. All right, so then the second series, I don't have the timing on the sales of that yet, but we'll make sure that that coincides with when we need the proceeds to actually do the construction. And why I'm speaking of that too, in January, Sam will be bringing to you really the timeline and the steps, because there are some things that you as a board will have to take to actually sell those bonds and go through that process in order to get the proceeds. And since we're doing it in 3 series, you'll have to go through that process 3 different times. So the second series then, same type of thing. We'll be doing the design, documentation during the spring, summertime, review it in the fall, go out for bid, and then do construction in that following summer time frame. So the second series would include the elementary playground improvements, some paving and sidewalk replacement, some parking lot replacement, window coverings at Lakeville, fire alarm replacement at OE, a whole bunch of things at the middle school, paving, sidewalk, parking lot, lighting, boiler replacement, sanitary and heating piping replacement, HVAC controls, fire alarm, and then at the high school, the flooring replacement. So that's all contained in Series 2. Any questions on those? And then finally in Series 3, All the elementaries will then get their door and frame replacements, exterior lighting replacement, DA fire alarm replacement, Clear Lake door and frame replacement, Clear Lake also the building exterior lighting, Leonard, the classroom window coverings, OE, the classroom window coverings, middle school, the door and frame replacement and window coverings. At the high school, paving, sidewalk, parking lot, building exterior, building envelope improvements. We're gonna replace some stuff in the pool, the actual finish of the pool, so we'll drain that. The air conditioner down in the pool, door and frame replacement, classroom window coverings, and then in the transportation, we'll do the paving and sidewalk, the roofing at the transportation, and the driver's lounge, toilet room renovations. That would all be in the third series. So as you can see, we're trying to group like-minded things together. I think the other thing too that is worth noting, while this is our game plan coming out of the chute, it doesn't mean that we won't make some changes along the way. So for instance, I don't know, let's say that in 2021, all of a sudden, the fire alarm stuff at DA doesn't pass inspection and we gotta do something, well then we'll move that up. We've gotta do that and we'll push something else back. We tried to move the most important things into Series 1, second most in Series 2, third most in Series 3. So, I'm thinking like, while most of the paving and those types of things are in Series 3, we do have some of that in Series 2, and those parking lots and driveways that are worse, in worse shape, those we'd be doing in Series 2. The ones that are in the best shape of what we have, we would push off obviously until Series 3.
Thank you. You mentioned that the sinking fund might be used also to cover things like, didn't you say?
There was two main.
Rolling over like the site improvements, like the driveways and the sidewalks?
Yep.
So this doesn't include sinking fund at all? We're just talking about the bond?
Yes.
And the sinking fund money by then is available? So we're holding it in reserve, or we're just reallocating based on what's needed?
Both. So sinking fund will run from 2018, and it's only 5 years. So it'll go from 2018 to 2023. So actually, the receipt of those monies for the sinking fund is going to end before the last phase of construction in the bond. Okay? From a budget standpoint, the money, the $4 million that was over the life of the 5 years of the sinking fund, it was really budgeted in two main categories. Site improvements, because there was more things we wanted to do than what the bond could handle, and the technology. That's not to say, and so Sam and Chuck, you guys, I'm on tape, so correct me if I'm wrong.
You're doing great so far.
That's not to say that we can't use, as long as it's a permissible expense in the sinking fund. If something were to happen, we needed to move a project up, as long as that project is a capital, legal approved expense, we could use sinking fund dollars to pay for that, as long as we have the money for it, pay for that, and then shift, something that was in the sinking fund back to the bond, which is still a capital improvement, to be done at a later date. So there is the ability to, flex what you're purchasing, but there are limits, because there are things that you cannot use a sinking fund dollar for that you can a bond dollar. And so you just, you need to make sure that, yeah, you're only using those dollars for legal expenses. Does that make sense?
Question, it's really for the group, not necessarily for you, Tim, but you can answer it. My concern, my thought is as we go through this process and we have like at the high school paving and sidewalks replacement in 2023, and I know we have some in Series 2. And then we also have some air movers and things that are typically high maintenance dollars for us. What kind of thought has been put into how much money are we going to need to spend to get those maintenance items that traditionally hit us until we get to 2023 or until we get around to doing that project? Are we going to spend $10,000? Are we going to spend $50,000 on patching holes and doing small repairs here and there? I guess that's a thought that, you know, if we're going to throw good money after bad, you know, I'm sure there's some thought around it, but help me understand, because I'm sure we're going to get, once everything starts to happen, we're going to get questioned, well, how come you're doing this and not that? And you know, you see these potholes and why aren't you doing those? So help me understand.
If you don't mind, I can field that one. I was just going to say, you know, a lot of this is due to cash flow situations. So, you know, we have to map out, you know, we have rough estimates of what, you know, each of these projects are going to cost. For instance, roofing. For instance, we put, you know, dollars towards, obviously, repavement. So a lot of these things, they're obviously estimates. Some of them have escalation, most of them have escalation factors depending on how far out they go. But we package them because when we bid them out, we're going to be packaging them with the like projects. So, you know, we're going to be doing pavement, we're going to put out packaging for, you know, for bids for pavement. And so when we're doing that, and we're planning these going forward for bond proceeds, we've got to make sure that we have those proceeds already in the coffers in order to spend that and do the construction. So that's one of the primary dictators of this schedule, is trying to package the like projects that Tim had mentioned before and time it, but also know that you can't spend it unless you have it. And obviously, we have two things going on. We're speaking specifically here with bond proceeds, and so we know that we're going to be selling bonds every 2 years over the next 6 years approximately. And we're only going to get a little bit under $9 million per series net. So we've got to work within those constraints. And so to go back to your question, we do recognize that we are going to be spending general fund money to do those continued maintenance. However, when you bring up like this, for example, an AHU, well, you know, those AHUs, we have maintenance related items associated with that. We have to grease, we have to make sure that there's, obviously the housings are in good shape. We're keeping them running. Band-aid approaches, but they're working, right? So you never know what can completely shut down and it can completely, you know, just go kaput. And then you've really got to put the dollars in. And that's what Tim said. This could change depending on what goes on with the operations of these mechanical units as an example. But as of right now, we're really packaging these due to the cash flow of when we see the cash flow happening, as well as, again, putting together bid packages for like projects. Because you don't want to put a bid package out for an AHU and then 2 years down the road do it again, because you're not going to get economies of scale when you build it, when you bid it out. So.
Okay, very good, thank you. Dr. Brayton.
Is Leonard's parking lot getting addressed? I didn't
Yes.
see it in any of these series.
And I think
Series 2.
2 or 3, Series 2.
Can we go back?
Yep.
Sorry.
Is that an expansion?
Joyce, it's lumped together, I'm sorry, Dr. Brayton, it's lumped together in all elementary schools. The playground improvements, the paving, sidewalks, and parking lots. So
So is the parking lot more than just a lighting replacement, Chuck?
yes,
Okay,
The parking lot would be,
part of the paving and sidewalk
With this.
replacement.
okay.
So-
Are we expanding it? Aren't we kind of,
yes.
yes?
Okay.
Thanks for clarifying.
Oh, Mr. Donovan.
Mr. Chairman, question I have, and I'm glad you got that screen up. Playground improvements. I thought that some of them were mandated in the sense that we weren't compliant. And so we needed to become compliant. I may have heard that some of our playgrounds are not currently compliant with standards. So do we have grace to wait 4 years to make them compliant?
So I'll say it this way. Our playgrounds are compliant today. They're inspected every year. However, as soon as we go to add anything, change anything, there's new standards we have to meet.
That's what that's the context of that conversation. Okay.
And so as soon as we go to do playgrounds,
Then they're not compliant.
then
We
we
gotta
gotta
meet
do
new
playgrounds.
standards.
That's right.
Okay.
Can I have a follow-up to that question? If we touch the playground here,
Only affects here.
only affects here, doesn't affect every playground in the district. Only affects the school that you're working on at that
Correct.
time.
But going back to what Sam said, we're trying to group things
Right,
together.
sure.
So when we go and buy, whether it's actually new equipment or the removal of all the pea gravel and put in the new mulch or whatever it's called, I'm sorry, my mind's going blank. We want to buy that for all 5 playgrounds, not one at a time.
Sure.
I did have a question.
Yes.
In phase 3, you were talking about replacing all the doors. That's for all the buildings. So I was just wondering about, I know that recently, we put those security systems that we improved on all of our doors. So obviously they're gonna get removed off the doors before we replace the doors, and then do we have to pay that company to come back and make sure that they're put on properly?
I don't want to speak.
Those aren't the type of doors that we're replacing. These are a series of interior doors throughout most of the buildings, and some other doors that weren't improved in the last bond.
With the locks,
Yeah.
so.
I thought all of our doors were
So-
had the locks put on them.
So I'll say it this way. When we go and do the door and frame replacement, if there are doors that have that night lock system a part of that bid process would be the removal of all these doors and frames too, right? And so also would be a part of removing that night lock system and reinstalling that night lock,
Okay.
all in one shot.
Ms. Guthrie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have several questions, if it's okay if I ask.
Shoot.
Okay. First question comes from something Sam said, the 9 million comment. I'm confused about that. Does that mean that when we sell the 3 times, we're gonna get 9 million anticipated out of each time?
Yeah.
That's
So
what you're saying, more like
basically-
27 million instead of 30 million?
Correct. So, we have fees associated with selling bonds.
Right.
We've got to pay the rating agency, S&P or Moody's. We've got to pay our underwriters a fee to sell these bonds. We have to pay the attorneys. So you're going to get net a little under 9 million per, series. Rough. And also we have the fees. I shouldn't say that specifically. There was also going to be fees for our architect as well as our construction manager. So when you look at what we actually have net to spend, you're gonna have a little less than 9 million, probably, depending on, what the fees are, could be considerably less than 9 million per series to actually spend on improvements, okay?
So that goes to my next question, which is how are we communicating about this now and as we go through each series? So that people understand down dollar for dollar, or are we communicating about dollar for dollar where this money is going and how it's being used and where the process is with our constituency and beyond?
So that starts tonight.
Right.
Right?
And
You're
so
doing that now.
we'll do this now, and we'll have periodic updates. So I would anticipate in the springtime, once we get through our design, our review, we're gonna come back, because we'll have estimates at that point.
Yep.
Then we'll put them out for bid, we'll actually see if things come in at what we say, and so you'll have updates then. I also anticipate, not not only putting like these types of presentations in the same spot on our website where we currently got the bond stuff out there today, we'll just keep a running tally. So as we sell proceeds, we'll show that coming in. And then as we spend them out, we'll show that so that at any given point in time, you can see where we're at. Have we sold 2 of the 3 series, or have we sold 1, or that kind of thing? And so just as different actions take place, we'll just keep informing the public and putting that out there.
Are there any opportunities like with the leader or with other broader
Yep,
venues?
those are
that we're
planned as
gonna
well.
tap in? Okay.
Yep.
Be sure. And my final question is, out of the list of the things that we're talking about covering, I understand that there's flexibility and that that's necessary. Is there anything on that list though that you anticipate you're nervous about, that you anticipate this could really throw the balance?
Do you want me to answer that?
So that we're ready.
All
I'm
right, so-
putting you on the spot, Tim, I know I am, but just so
All right,
we're
so-
ready, do we know what that is?
Before you answer that, let me just give a idea of what could happen. Oil prices go sky high.
Well, yeah,
Guess what happens? Price of pavement goes up. Now we're looking at what we slotted for doing our parking lots is now higher than what we thought it would probably be. So there's a lot of factors in the construction process that we have no control of. But I think we have a good plan going forward, but
yeah, okay. I guess my question is more, I understand we have to group things together to get the best bang for our buck, but maybe that there's, like we were talking about, a need that comes up all of a sudden where we have to put money somewhere where we weren't expecting to do that. And if there is anything in this plan that really is a red flag right now, I don't think it would be a bad idea for us to be aware of it. Even though, I mean, to me, it's to control what we can't control and acknowledge what we can't control. I understand asphalt is expensive.
it's a good thing to keep your eye on a target. And if there's anything out there that we're like, boy, this could get close.
So we can be fully transparent and have
Right.
opportunities to talk about it.
So I would say the other strategy that we've used maybe the last year and into the previous year, and I definitely anticipate using this strategy for at least the next 3 or 4 years, is our capital improvement fund. And so we will budget as a part of our normal operating budget, money every year to go into that capital improvement fund. Why? For exactly those reasons that Dan just said. There may be times where something comes up that, from a cash flow standpoint, we don't have the bond proceeds, we haven't collected it yet from the sinking fund, but the air conditioner just went out, it's $1 million air conditioner at the high school, we gotta do it. Then that's when we'll start to hit some of these other things. So that to me would be one strategy that we will plan on continuing forward to help, I'll just say, help mitigate those risks.
Right. That's perfect way to think about it. I feel like you guys have done a great job trying to help all of us understand how this is going to happen. I mean, all the way through the process, I felt well informed. I hope you guys agree. And that you all agree. That's the most important part. So I think understanding this is a big part of mitigating that risk, right?
Yeah, I think probably the hardest thing that's gonna be for our district, our community, our students, even our employees, is that historically, and so our culture of Oxford, we've always sold bond proceeds in one lump sum at the beginning. We're not doing that. The hardest thing is gonna be saying to that teacher, well, what do you mean I'm not gonna get fill in the blank for another year? Or what do you mean I'm not gonna get my playground for 2 more years? Well, that's just the way it is. I mean, we know about it, we're planning about it, but we can't buy everything all at once, all up front.
Have we ever had this much in bond funding coming in?
Oh, yes.
We have?
Oh, yeah, we,
Back in 2009, we had 32 million, and I think we spent nearly 32 million in a year and a half, 2 years,
And the funds all came in.
and it was all at one time.
prior to that, in '03, when we built the new high school and expanded on, that was 100 million, over 100 million, I wanna say, or something like that. And that was built over the course of 3 years. But, so, yeah, going all the way back to the 1980s, when that middle school was built as the new high school, we've traditionally sold the bonds all in, all up front, all at one time, and so that money's sitting there. So as you can consume it and as you can get ready to do the next project, your money's ready and willing, and you spend it and you do it. We're not doing it that way.
Because, remind me, sorry.
2 reasons. One, and the biggest reason is that in order to maximize the amount that we could sell in bonds, we wanted to space that out so that we're not paying interest all up front.
Got it.
So some of this money, we won't even start paying interest on it until 6 years from now,
Which is good news.
which big dollars. Which leads to the second point is, we wanted to hold our tax the same. So today, our tax levy is 7.9 mils. We wanted to keep that constant. The way that we can do that is by spreading this debt out and not taking it all up front. And so, in order to maximize as much money as we could to borrow, while at the same time keeping our debt payment for the taxpayer the same, we needed to do it in a series.
Okay. And so, how can we, as your board, support you in the
So when people say,
conversations?
I want this tomorrow, say, we hear ya,
We
it's planned, we understand, but you gotta have patience.
Even with teachers and with, I mean,
It is what it is.
yeah.
Jenny, I think the conversation needs to be exactly what Tim said. We're gonna get it as soon as we can get it. We'd love to do it all right away. But I think as we put this proposal together, I think in the back of our minds, we knew if we asked for a millage increase, it never would have passed. So we wouldn't have had anything. So this is the smartest way to do it, the most palatable way for the community without having an increase in their taxes. So I think that's really the message that we need to give to people that ask, hey, I want my parking lot fixed.
No, it sounds very smart. Much smart, it does sound smarter. I'm not
It
pushing back.
wasn't my idea, it was.
I did. It's like- I think people get confused though. They think that it's like a village and that we're gonna get this big,
Right.
that we've now got 32 million, like just sitting in our bank account, in our general fund or wherever. They don't really care. They think we have it and we can spend it.
Right.
But that's the difference between like a bond and a millage, right? Is that the way that we're setting it up? Okay.
Okay. Mr. Donnelly?
One last question.
Sure.
7 years is a long time, so you talked about using the capital improvement side of the budget as a way to bridge. If you have to use the capital fund to bridge some of these things, can you then reimburse your capital fund?
Not from the bonds, no.
So then, if you spend in the next 7 years $7 million because you couldn't wait for the bond monies to come, what do you do when the bond money comes and your $7 million isn't dedicated to things you promised to put it towards?
So,
Yeah, cool. So,
I guess I'd say, one, we don't have 7 million on capital improvements, but whatever that.
But in
number is.
over 7 years, you know, I'm
Right,
just.
so let's say maybe the total is, you know, I think we've got 400,000 in there, so let's say it's a couple million.
Okay.
2 million. What I would say is going back exactly what we told our people, we're gonna spend our money on these things, and if there's anything extra, what are we gonna do? We're buying buses.
That's what I wanted to hear. That's what I wanted to hear. I wanted it said, so they heard, because that's what's gonna happen. In 7 years, you're gonna have to pay for stuff it's just gonna happen.
So just for clarification, because I feel like this needs to be on tape too. You can use bond dollars for buses. You cannot use sinking fund dollars for buses. So that's another example of where sometimes you can move money from one pot to another to pay for something, but there are other times where it's illegal to do that. So,
We don't want to do that.
don't want to do that.
And just one question for me as far as the financing goes. Can you borrow money from your, not your general fund, but your, no, not capital improvement. If you do capital improvements, can you take it from your rainy day fund?
sure.
I got so many fund in my,
Yeah, I'm sorry, so.
Your fund balance.
your fund balance, thank you.
Okay, so yes, let me just give a quick reiteration of kind of our fund balance, our $9.4 million fund balance is really associated with our general fund, okay? But as you all may recall, we fund the capital project fund. Right now, it has $475,000 in its budget. It's small. We fund that exclusively from the general fund, okay? Now, I think your question, Dan, is can we use the general fund's fund balance to purchase some capital things that, if the board so chooses to do that, absolutely. I caution, however, though, because when you start taking from your general fund balance, you get negative credit ratings and it looks poor even when the board approves upon it because you're reducing your fund balance, okay? So that's, yeah, was that what you were?
No, my question, and because I was stuck on what to call it, sorry. Our fund balance, if we borrow, say, $500,000 from our fund balance because we need X. that
During
we
the
need
course of the year?
During the course of
Mhm.
this whole project.
Mhm.
Can we take bond funds to replenish that $500,000 that we borrowed?
You can, so that's a reimbursement. And so one of the things that we're going to ask the board to do in January or February of this year is pass a refunding resolution, because there's going to be costs associated with this first series at the very minimum, at the very least, that we're going to have to expend funds. We don't have the bond proceeds yet, because we haven't sold the bonds yet in Series 1. So we're going to be having to use some of our general fund money, and then once we get the bond proceeds, we can then reimburse from those bond proceeds. But that has to be done through a reimbursement resolution specifically.
Which
So
the
that
board
can be
needs to
done.
pass.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
that's kind of where I was going. I did,
Yeah.
because I know that we're gonna have some expenses up front, and then
Mhm.
we don't have the money yet,
Yep.
so.
Chuck's gonna be doing some design work, Clark's gonna be doing some help, but with that, they need to get, they're gonna need to get paid. They have staff too, they're a business, they're a going concern. We recognize that. That's part of the reason why we need some of these reimbursement resolutions put into place.
And I think it's really important that the board, when you get this question, if you get the question, I'm not sure you will, but if you do, people say, well, obviously you have to have all these professional services up front that we're paying for. But really, what a lot of people don't realize is that they provide, in many cases, a reduction of cost just through the volume that they do, that they send out to bid.
Absolutely.
Everybody knows that they're gonna have a great bid package when these firms are going out there. So just the fact that they're on our side,
Yeah.
we will see some, I'm not gonna wood, we'll see some savings as we go out to bid, so.
And so just for additional clarification, what you just talked about as far as reimbursement from the bond to the general fund, you cannot do that with a sinking fund.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, so.
Can't use sinking fund dollars for any reimbursement.
Right, so in other words, we can't say in July of 2018, we're gonna buy $400,000 worth of computers, pay for it out of the general fund, wait to collect that money from the sinking fund in October, November, and then reimburse it. You cannot do that with sinking fund dollars. You can only do that with bond proceeds.
All right.
And through a resolution.
Mr. Bailey?
What kind of safety net, or I guess safety net is a good word for that. Some of these projects that were in Series 2, Series 3 is a lot of paving, a lot of projects, and like Dan had mentioned, with the cost of oil, with cost, are we setting certain dollar amounts to these projects, or is there a priority? I mean, say oil goes up and we budgeted $3 million for each parking lot, and now they're $5 million, and we have to go back to the community and say, oh, hey, we need more money, and they say, we just gave you that money. I mean, do we have some kind of security net that says we're pushing these out, but we'll have the money?
So within the projects that we have now, part of Chuck's and IDS's and also Clark, part of their charge was to build in those anticipatory rate increases. So that's in there. Now, does that mean that they're gonna be perfect? No. We may be high on some, hopefully we're low on some. And so, yeah, I think we'll have to play it, but as it sits today, we have budgeted for those increases on an annual basis to cover them that far out.
Okay. Any further questions? Anybody else? I think we've covered a lot, but there might be other questions on there. All right, moving on. By the way, thank you. Thank you, Chuck. Item 6, curriculum and instruction, Mr. Weaver.
First of all, thank you for the flowers and the card last week. Appreciated, it was much appreciated. The other thing is just an FYI, I am looking at and having discussions with Mr. Barna and Mr. Throne, looking at purchasing our math expressions K-5 materials early. If I can purchase it early, I can save quite a bit of money. We're currently in the process of looking at that and how we can do that. And hopefully the next board meeting, I guess in January, bring that forward to you for approval so that we can save a good bit of money before we figure it all out. So, just an FYI.
All right, thank you, Ken. Item 7, finance and operations, Mr. Barna. Nothing else?
No.
Okay. Item 8, human resources, Mrs. Latowski.
Thank you. Just to inform the board, as our district is growing, that causes a need for additional support staff, so you'll see a few new faces out there in the district. We have added several positions in the virtual academy in basically support, operations support. Shelby Charette will be working at the OVA facility, and for shared time because of the great growth there. Barb Massey will be the specialist there that will be assisting. We've also added a position in student services. Kathy Epsher, who was counseling secretary at the high school, is moving over. And we have hired Melissa Williams to take her place at the high school. So I think, and then we also added an assistant principal for the virtual academy, and Matt Santilla, who has been their ed tech coordinator, will be taking that role. We just offered that to him last night, and he accepted. So I'll bring that to the board next meeting.
Very good. Thank you, Nancy. Item 9, student services.
Nothing this evening.
Item 10, board policy. We have a couple first readings. Dr. Brazington.
Move to approve a first reading of policy numbers 1439, administrative discipline, 3139, staff discipline, professional staff, 4139, staff discipline, support staff, 2410, prohibition of referral or assistance, 1421, criminal history record check administration, 8142, criminal history record check operations, 8321, criminal justice information security, 2221, mandatory courses, 2623, student assessment, 2414, reproductive health and family planning, 2418, sex education, 7540.02, web content, services, and apps.
Support? Support, Ms. Schaefer. Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 11, unscheduled audience participation. Anybody? Deja? You're gonna smile up here, I'm gonna pick on you. Okay, we have a few scheduled activities that we'll have on the website. The most important being December 23rd, January 7th, holiday break, no students. I'm hearing cheers from different areas. And then January 9th is our Board of Education meeting at the high school at 6:30. No students on January 15th. High school exams on the 17th through the 19th. And then it's already the end of the first semester on January 19th. So it's been a very quick year. Did I miss clarification? Okay. Clarification? None. Final board comments, Ms. Guthrie.
On the spot. Thank you. Thank you to Tim and to Sam for a detailed update on our bonds and sinking fund. I think this is uncharted territory for your new board members, and it just is so great to have so much information. So thanks for putting up that questions. I guess I have a question about the Oakland County dinner on the 24th of January and the third grade reading program being rolled out for Oakland County. Do we have a board member representative?
We don't have one yet, if you're volunteering.
I will go. I'll be happy to go, but I just wondered if,
if that's something that you
our
would like.
board is attending.
If we can, we go, if your schedule allows, if it's, if that's something you want to do, by all means.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. And Joe Lamont is here tonight, and I just want to call out that international program video one more time, and the fact that the international program to me it's evolved so much, and I had a great time talking to Joe before we sat down tonight, and I just encourage you all to explore that if you don't feel like you know and understand what's going on with the international program right now. It's exciting. But thank you all so much, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful Merry Christmas and a happy holiday season to everyone.
Thank you. Mr. Bailey.
Same thing, thank you very much for the information. I'm sure I'm gonna have a couple million questions as this goes, so I appreciate
Questions are free, Corey.
The answers are what cost me.
That's right.
But I appreciate that. Thank you very much for the ornaments. I think that is really cool. I don't know how many of you had the opportunity to go to the Many Moods of Christmas, but that performance that Mr. Card put on was incredible. And even some of the behind scenes that I don't think a lot of people know. He put on that performance at the senior center over in Waterstone because so many of them can't get out to the performance. Those kids worked Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Saturday night, they were dead to the world. And a majority of them got up Sunday and went over for a couple hours and did caroling with the seniors with those same songs. So the leadership that he's putting into our kids it's amazing. I'm really impressed with that.
Dr. Brazington.
I echo Corey and Jenny's comments. Really appreciate what Christy brought as far as the kids coming up and presenting. And sometimes I just don't realize how much of an impact IB has outside of the school. Like, I know what it does inside the school with the exhibitions and the diploma program, but sometimes I forget how it just impacts kids in such a meaningful way. So I just really appreciate Chris reminding us how important that IB program is.
Mr. Donnelly.
Two things. With Dr. Bridgington, and the culture that we live in today, to have children thinking outside themselves, we're doing something right. We're doing something right. And we got to multiply that by about 4,000. Thank you, Tim, for the report. You're not going to make anybody happy in this process, because not everything, you shoot something out 7 years from now that needs to be done today, it's a pain. So I don't envy that position. Reporting is going to be really important. And when you start borrowing funds and sharing funds and blending funds, that's where people think we're moving shells. We're playing the shell game. And that's where your transparency has to be that much more vivid. I would love to be involved in a conversation with how you're going to do this. Lay it out on your website. How are you going to do it? Because not everybody can look at spreadsheets and understand 72 columns. But what you're going to be accused of is, what did they do? They took money from this fund, and then what slid over? That's when they start getting nervous, and that's got to be so transparent that anybody can understand what you're doing and walk away going, okay, get it. So I just want to encourage you to do that. I'm done. I only have two things.
Okay, I wasn't sure. Thank you for having us, Christy. She leave? No. Thank you for having us. You always give us such yummy snacks. Appreciate it. Please thank them. I have a big heart for autism, and I greatly appreciate that. So please make sure that they know that that's appreciated. Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Okay. Christy, thank you. Inviting us here a little early so we can kind of chat amongst ourselves and with the people that are coming in as everybody comes in. It's always nice to just kind of sit and talk and not feel as though, it's just a nice relaxing thing. So thank you again. Thank you for the refreshments.
Can I also add thanks to Pat Bono too?
Yes, thank you, Pat. And Pat arranged for all the snacks. Christy's just the one that kind of facilitates everything. Makes it all look pretty. Thank you for the ornament. Appreciate it. But most importantly, thank you for your leadership. Your leadership shows through your students. And as Dr. Brazington said, thanks for showing us and everybody what IB looks like outside of the program, outside of, I'm doing this because I want an IB diploma. These are the things, we're talking about a bond process that's going to happen 7 years. Think about when these kids, 7 years from now, they're going to be in the high school. And when you put everything together, I think you're going to see some real magical things happening in Oxford. Not that they're not happening now, but there are going to be some great things happening. So it takes a while to get these things going. And it didn't start today. It started a little while ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Now we're starting to see it. So thank you very, very much. And it's not just happening in this building. I like to kid around with Dacia, but that middle school with 1,500 kids in it is an amazing place. You see what the robotics competition was. It's just unbelievable what we do inside these walls and then when they go out. So, and it's happening all over. It's happening at the high school. We touched upon it last week. So, elementary schools. I don't want to leave you guys out, but you know how I feel about you guys. And then Sam, Tim, central office. Tom's right. We need to be as transparent can be. And I think that's why we had such a long conversation about it. We do not take for granted the gift that we were given by our community. We need to make sure that we honor their gift and do it the right way. Doesn't mean we have to do everything perfect. Perfect is not the right way. The right way is the right way. It's with integrity and honesty and transparency. And that's what we're gonna do. I have complete confidence in central office, in Tim, and we're gonna get it done, and we're gonna get it done right. So with that, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. And Tim, I was gonna give it over to you. No.
He got his notes out, he's all ready to go. Yes, thank you, Pat, for arranging our little get-together and the goodies. I'm sure I'll maybe sneak out with a couple of those cookies. So, Christy, thanks for the students and arranging that. Yeah, pretty cool stuff. Just a couple of things I want to update the board on. I know at the last meeting I told you I was having Tony go out and get some prices to create our secure entry at the board office. And so, okay, I was a little wrong. And in my budget, it's probably going to be more like around the $30,000 range, because we have to create a firewall, which means we have to have certain doors that are crazy expensive and a bunch of things, but I am committed to creating a secure entry for our people, and so I'm going to instruct him to go out and continue to do that. We'll bring forward those things before the board. Yeah, so, and that is not budget or not bond or sinking fund, that's just our general fund dollars, and we've appropriated for that, so.
I thought you were gonna say we have the bake sale.
No. We also will be purchasing some new and replacement microphones for the Performing Arts Center, and that's probably around the $10,000 range, and again, that is appropriated for. We will be using some of the dollars that we collect in rental fees and building use fees to help replenish that, and so I want to let the board know that as well, and again, that's not bond or sinking fund dollars. And then just the last thing is that we are going to close the administrative offices from Monday the 22nd through Monday, January 2nd. So those 6 days, the admin building.
Monday's 26th.
26th.
It's Christmas Day. Monday.
So Monday, the 25th, will be closed all of that week, and including January 2nd, which is the following Monday, we will be closed. We'll reopen on Tuesday, January 3rd. Did I get that right?
Yeah. Tuesday's January 2nd.
We'll reopen Tuesday.
We're closed.
Just come back.
Anyway, we're closing that building down for that week. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Parks and Rec spots.
I had something to add.
All right.
All right. And with that, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and our meeting's adjourned.